Good morning, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this special webinar. And we will just get started. Shayla from our team will kick it off, and then we'll take it from there. So Shayla, you can take it away.
Hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining us. Good morning or good evening, wherever you are on your time zone. My name is Shayla Nybar. I am the Vice President of Student Success here at USMLE SARTI. I conduct most of our profile reviews, and I also help our students with onboarding. So I look forward to guiding each one of you as you join us in your match journey. Today we are talking about visas for rotations specifically. We'll be addressing some questions that were previously submitted. You are welcome to submit questions in the chat box as we go, and then we will address those at the end of the webinar. With us today, we have a U.S. Attorney, Sandra Lee. She is an immigration attorney based out of Houston, Texas. She has extensive knowledge in immigration law. She's committed to accessibility, affordability, efficiency, and ethical representation of her clients. So without further ado, I'd like to turn the time over to Sandra Lee.
Hi, good afternoon, good morning to everyone. I know this is probably a very stressful time for some of you if you're trying to make appointments and trying to get to the US to do the rotations and clerkships. So we just wanted to make it a little bit easier and just with some basic knowledge and tips that can kind of help you through the process. So I know there were some basic questions that were submitted, so I'll kind of touch upon those as we go. And then at the end, if anyone else has anything else that's thrown out there that's troubling, we can go over those as well. But I think overall, it'll probably cover the whole shagambit of the whole thing. And so I think most people will be okay with it. So let's just get started.
Thank you, Sandra. For those of you who are new, Sandra and her firm are partnered with USMLE SARTI. So we have now helped more than, I think, 200 students with their visa invite letters with the help of Sandra. And we have had a very good success rate. So for those of you who are wondering what this is all about, mostly we will talk about rotations and what kind of visa you can get. But before we get started, I wanted to quickly give an overview of what we at SARTI do so that, there is some context to it. So as you can probably see my screen, let me just, so yes. So USMLE SARTI, for those of you who are new, we are the career office for foreign-born physicians. So we help in the end-to-end USMLE advisory. We help in step one. We've started that step one mentorship, but primarily we help in rotations, research, interview preparation, ERAS, PS, CV, and everything around match. So now I think you guys can see it. Our core services, like I said, electives, match guidance, USMLE strategy. And we have helped over 7,000 students since 2015. So this is our eighth or ninth year. And now, with the rotations coming back, this is going to be big. Some factors that you should be aware that help IMGs in match. So we are going to talk about the visa, in today's lecture. So I'm not going to go into it. But overall, I think all of you should realize and remember scores are going to be important. US clinical experience is absolutely paramount. 3 to 4 months of USCE on-site is becoming a lot more important now with the COVID going away and programs expecting on-site electives or rotations, and that's the focus of today. Visa requirement, of course, B1, B2 or other visas that can help you get to US. And after that, once you match, then it'll be H1 and J1. And Sandra's team, they have an expertise in case ever you need help with any kind of visa. And there are these other factors. I'm not going to go into those because they are part of other webinars, which is LORs, your graduation, ERAS, PSCV. We can talk all about that in a later webinar. But I want to focus on clinical rotations. Like I said, step 1 is now pass fail. So clinical rotations have become more and more important. They want to see that you are comfortable with the US system, with the EMR system. You can interact with the physician, the teams, the patients. That's why they become important. Letters of recommendations are equally important, strong LORs on hospital letterheads. And then, of course, there are electives. If you are still a medical student, there can be observerships, there can be externships. So they are all important depending on when you do it, what you can do. And of course, you can go to our website, and I think Aarti and Swati from our team are here as well. They can give you the link to our website for rotations. And if you stay till the end, we will have some exciting offers for you for these rotations, some discounts. Then there is research as well. But like I said, we'll talk about research and other aspects maybe in a later webinar. But I want to just quickly, now that we have close to 100 attendees, I don't want to wait longer. Let's go over some of the questions that we got on visa. From a housekeeping perspective, you can all put it in the chat. We will get to the chat after we go through some of the common questions. We'll take up the chat question. So Sandra, let's get started. I think starting from the scratch, what is the process of getting the visa for rotations? What type of visa? What documents? Let's start from there. What is the process? What is the type of visa?
Well, the type of visa is B1. And I know some students get a little bit worried because it's under an umbrella, B1, B2. Now, B2 is for, leisure, travel, for vacationing. B1 is for business. And under that, there are several categories, of which clerkships and rotations are specifically qualified. So even though it does come under that umbrella, it will be shown during the actual visa appointment and where you fill out the DS-160, it will be B1. So there's no confusion there. It's just kind of the way they have it set up. And of course, what is very important is that every consular office, embassy, all have their own specific rules. So there's no script out there saying, hey, bring these exact documents, although there's core documents, we'll go over that in a minute. But basically, you really have to do a little bit of your own research on which consulate you're going to, which embassy. And I think a great resource for that, and I would write this down, is a website, and it's funded by the government, has all the information on there. You can literally click the type of visa, what country, and all this information and what's required, the steps, because it's all a little bit different everywhere. And this website is ustraveldocs.com. And so we'll have that probably in the little Q&A chat later, but that is a very, very, very important resource. And I would recommend that to anyone, because you can ask and you can write notes now, but again, it'll be a little bit different everywhere else. So I think that's a wonderful resource that people don't really recognize or know unless you're kind of in the business. So again, ustraveldocs.com. So make sure you visit that site, and I think you guys will be happy about that. So basically the process on a legal standpoint is that you obviously would file for the visa appointment, and that is, again, it's outlined on each embassy site, and it's pretty self-explanatory. You go onto the website, you pay the fee, you fill out the information. And I know a lot of you guys have a little bit of questions on what information needs to be filled where. And so I think that can be taken on a case by case basis. But I believe one of the main questions was, who is my sponsor? Who is my petitioner over here? And I think that won't be me, the attorney. It will be the doctor that you are going to be working under. So when they're asking for that contact, that is the contact you'll be filling in. And we've also put that in our legal letter as well. And so, when they're interviewing you, I don't think that'll be a problem because it is in the legal letter. But just when filling out the form, I know a lot of people get apprehensive, and so there you put that in.
So one question, Sandra, as you're going through it, because we are getting a lot of it as well. Can you go over some of the main forms like DS-160 and some of the other forms?
That's basically the form. DS.
Oh, that is the form? Okay.
Yeah, that's it. So once you do that, you pay the fee and you bring proof of payment that you've paid. They'll give you a date. On that date, you need to bring a passport. Your passport at least has to have 6 months validity date. Otherwise, they're going to say, hey, you don't have enough time on there, go renew it. And of course, renewing takes time. So a valid passport, proof of payment of the visa fee, the letter that outlines the date of your appointment, I think, and also supporting documents. So you'll be bringing this letter. Depending on how deep you want to go. And for B1s, it's really not that much documentation that's required. And from what I know as an attorney, they don't require it. You don't want to give too much because then there's confusion. Sometimes they want to make you nervous, so they ask more questions about it. So basically, you just want to streamline it and have a very, very succinct package. And so as far as supporting documents, again, I would check the website because it would depend on each embassy, but they like to know that you are literally coming to the US for this specific purpose, this 4 or 8 week, whatever your time frame is, and that you are returning back. So because B1s in nature are temporary, they want to make sure your visit is temporary for this purpose. So the supporting documentation will just show the doctor that is petitioning your stay here, or that you're doing your rotation with. A lot of times the letter is enough for that, but you can also have supporting documentation from the rotation and from the doctor and from the hospital. And another thing is that you can show that you own property or you have a long-term lease here. You are finishing up, school or whatever you're doing. Those things basically, and I'm just giving you examples, are things they're looking for that recognize that it's temporary, that you have some reason, you have ties to wherever you came from, and that you will be going back there after this visit. So for B1s, that is the main supporting purpose of the supporting documents. So again, you can check the website, but otherwise those are the main things. And also I forgot one more thing is that you are financially stable to come here. So in other words, they don't want someone coming here and then all of a sudden not being able to afford being here. So the government doesn't want to pay for that. So basically they want to make sure you are financially able to come here. You're supported either by family, yourself, and those things can be supported by documents by your bank account. Now, not every embassy wants to see those. So again, I would check, but that would prove financial stability and, documents that, oh, my parents live here, I own land here. That also seems to be helpful in India. So if that's the country that you're coming out of, I've seen that to be very helpful. And those are basically it. So it's nothing too big or dramatic for B1s. I know it's a little bit more difficult depending on which country you're applying from. So I do understand that nuance, but again, it's basically the root of it is the same. And so I think that about covers what is required. I know people asked about, I guess, the time frame. So in our letter, we state however long it is. They like that. They want to see a specific, 4 weeks. I'm going to be here on this date. And of course, they're not going to check every, day by day thing, but the more specific you are, the less scrutiny you will get. So yeah, so that's why we put that in the letter. Sometimes at the interview, they like seeing a ticket stub. I've seen that make them happy. So it's not required, but it's a tip that you can bring, even with the attached return. Now, I know some people want to squeeze in a little bit of vacation time while they're there. You already came here, you made it all this way. Why not squeeze in a couple trips here and there? I mean, overall, I don't see that to be a problem as long as you're within this time frame that you've requested. Now, if you go like 4 months over, next time you apply for it, if you're with a sticky officer, they might look poorly on that. So that's just something to keep in mind. But, if you're going to spend a little bit extra time, then when we write the legal letter, we can put that in there too. Like, we will be there for this sole purpose, and kind of just leave the window a little bit more vague on time, just so that you're covered. And I think that was one of the questions about, extending the B1.
Yes. And just for our audience, if you are wondering, Sandra has extensive experience with all consulates in India, because most of our students come from India, Pakistan, Southeast Asia. So she is well aware of what these consulates seem to be asking, as we have done these visas for rotations. So let me go over some of the other questions that I'm seeing came to us. Now, what are your tips if visa has been rejected? Let's say, going for the second time or third time. Are there any things that you should be particularly careful about?
Well, they say every time you apply, it's fresh, but we all know that's probably not so in the record. Everything's reflected there. So legally, they're not supposed to hold anything against you. But when you go in, the main thing is to be very, very confident. I know that seems like you can say that without saying it, but the more nervous you look, the more jittery you are, the more repetitive you are. I've seen those interviews go sour quickly. So I would say the most important thing is the confidence, but you go in and you have to be absolutely truthful. Now, don't be a motor mouth, because like I said, the less you say, the better. But if they're directly asking you questions, in no scenario should you be less than forthcoming. You have to, if they've asked you, have you had rejections? You say yes, but I believe I have all the qualifications ready this time, and my visit is for these valid reasons. And you just kind of reiterate why you're there. There's no specific tips. It's really up to each individual officer. Some are there to specifically rattle your bones just to see where the pieces land. And that's their job. It's not anything personal to you or that they're suspecting such things. That's their job to do so. And I've known that in the IT industry, that happens a lot when they land here. They kind of make sure all the answers are the same as what you said over there, and they rattle your bones. That isn't what they do for B1s, but I'm just giving you an example that part of their job is to make sure to get you a little nervous so that the truth comes out. So just know and be prepared. Just stay calm, confident, and you have your documents with you. They're in front of you. Refer to them. And there's not really much you can do to avoid, rejections. They happen if you have a very strict officer, or it just depends on the administration or the country in that time period. It really is just timing and luck of who you get. So there isn't much you can do to avoid that, but other than just say the truth, remain calm, and this is for a valid purpose. You are coming here to do this very important clerkship rotation. So that's really what you kind of have to rely on. And most of the times it should be fine. It would work.
So a couple of related questions on this. One is the hands-on versus externships versus observership. So as per the US laws applicable to B1, what is technically allowed, not allowed? What do the laws say on that?
Well, so if there's two ways you can come here, and one is through observership, and one is for the clerkship that's hands-on. Those are the only two ways. And it depends on if you've graduated, you actually have a foreign degree, or if you don't. So a lot of the students already know, hey, I'm still in school, or I'm finishing this up. I need this, this specific wording in the rotation, in the clerkship. So what we do is when Shayla or whoever reaches out to you regarding the intake, we're very, very specific on, where you are in the process. So that's how we write it. Those are the only two ways you're allowed to come under this medical category of the B1. So it's observership. That means you are observing. It's not supposed to be hands-on. So, you come, you do a rotation, and it's all about the wording. So it's not like the officer there is a medical expert. They don't know what a clerkship is versus an observership. They just know these are keywords. This is what we have to look for. These can be approved. And by now, B1s are so common in certain areas and places around the world that produce amazing foreign doctors that they have been coached on that a little bit. So they know. And so clerkships, observationships, those are the key words. One is hands-on, obviously, and it's allowed. But as long as the main point is that you're not getting paid for this. This is, number one, you're not getting paid. Number two, it's for a certain amount of period. And those are the main things. And that's why you're here. And it's going to help you in your medical career. And you are returning. So
related question, is there a priority or importance they put, let's say, your letter versus someone, a clinic's letter or something like that? Is there a priority that they put?
No, there's no priority. Most people probably don't have a legal letter. It's definitely a bonus that puts your package above others, I think. Now, you have to have some sort of letter that outlines who the doctor is, who your petitioner is. Now, if you have that and you have the legal that outlines all that beautifully in a ribbon, that sets your package a little bit above others. I wouldn't say it's a written, yes, this is a priority, but I think, the results show for itself that when you have someone that is organized, they have a legal team sending you this, it's information, it's succinct, it's right there. You don't have to dig through anything. They like seeing that. So other visas, non-immigrant visas, have a more strict support petitioning letter. B1 doesn't, but the fact that you have it in there, it really just, highlights, why you're coming here. And I think it's only a benefit. Yeah.
Okay. So you spoke about, how on B1 they can come for observership and clerkships. Now there is another exam called Step 3 in USMLE. So you cannot claim to come here for that exam, can you? I mean, for B1, because that exam is only held in the US, and technically it is supposed to be done technically if you're already in your residency. So I'm assuming that exam cannot be a reason for this B1.
No, and like I said, it's those two specific reasons you cannot come to do those tests. That would be something else, not covered here, but no, you could not.
Okay. And now a lot of consulates who are still backlogged because of COVID, they have opened up some kind of an emergency request.
Right.
So what is this emergency request? Can you?
I've done some emergency requests, and I can say these clerkships and rotations on its face will not qualify. They're very, very specific. It's what the nation would be missing out and will be in loss if we don't let this visa go through. And that is a very high level of scrutiny to, overcome. So they have 5 different categories. Honestly, I tried to dig deep. I tried to be a little liberal about it. Maybe we can, really put some colorful verbiage in there to push it through, but I can't see any scenario in which it would qualify for an emergency, visa appointment. It's, hey, the US or the company or wherever country you're coming from is going to, have security breach issues if this person does not go there and get this training and come back and help us. It's very, very specific. And I don't know that, this longer term goal, because it's not immediate. You're coming to, improve your medical career. And that's kind of a little bit of a journey instead of, hey, I need to do this, come back, and this will help this emergency situation. So it really wouldn't qualify. So I know a lot of people are very, very ready to come, and they don't want to wait for the long wait. Sometimes it's over 8 months. I understand the frustration, but what I've seen is when you constantly check or you kind of switch the cities, pockets open up, and they open up quickly. So I had a consultant that said they couldn't get an appointment till 2024 April. And we just pushed a little further to say, hey, check those cities. How serious are you about coming quickly? So he widened his, area, and he was able to get an appointment. So he got one within 2 months. So, it really just depends. You have to be diligent and just constantly be checking.
Okay. Couple of now questions on, I guess, the visa interview. So if they say, why are you coming to the US? So you obviously talk about the observerships, clerkships. Should you also be talking about your USMLE journey and that long term you want to be doing residency here and all that? Or do you think that's not the right approach?
Well, sometimes I would say I would not open with that. Now, if they ask you, then I said, of course, you have to be forthcoming. But when you want to highlight that you're trying to add to your resume, trying to become this doctor, honestly, you can talk about it. I wouldn't open with it. Why? Because there's this shortage here. Ultimately, if you go through the right channels and you're sponsored, they want you here, right? We have a shortage in doctors. That's the whole point. It's allowed. So a lot of the officers, sometimes, like I said, they're not experts. So they might get confused of like, oh, I'm trying to, shake this guy up to make sure he comes back. But does he now realize overall they can actually immigrate here and become doctors and help the US? Sometimes it can be a little confusing for them. The well-versed officer will know, and it won't be a problem. So, it's your right to become this, doctor. You can be sponsored here. There's all the right channels, and they just don't want you to come here on the, vice of saying, I'm coming for this rotation, and then just stay here, squat. That's the only issue they're worried about. Long-term, you go through the green card process or you get a sponsor, then that's totally 100% okay. And in fact, preferred. We have a shortage. So I would say don't open with it, but then freely talk about it if it is what they ask you about, your long-term goals.
Okay. A couple of questions on denial. The first question is, if the visa is denied, can I or should I ask for the reason?
You can ask for the reason. I don't see why not. There's no rule that you couldn't. I don't know that they will sit there and tell you. They will say, well, please wait for the documentation, or, you'll be hearing back from us. Like I said, there's different rules in each place, but sometimes they're like, well, we need further evidence of, your ties to the community or the country. And then it's not a full out rejection. So they kind of tell you that sometimes. and then you make a second appointment. So it really just varies. But yeah, I mean, there's no rule that you couldn't ask.
Okay. A related question, after how much time should we reapply if there has been a denial? So do you have a preferred kind of, 3 months, 1 month?
There's no hard rule, but I would say at least a month, just so things are kind of all in the system, rotated out and everything. There's no glitchy stuff. I think 1 month is what's preferred. I mean, 3 is waiting a bit long, but 1 month, there's no rule about it. So technically you could apply 2 weeks later again, as long as you can get the date. Yeah.
Okay. And I know maybe we cannot answer very specific questions. It all depends on the profile and documentation, but someone is asking, I've been rejected twice under 214B. I tried to show proof of return document second time, but they didn't obviously buy into that. They didn't give me a chance. So do you have any specific recommendations if there have been multiple rejections?
No, there's not much you can do. It's unfortunate sometimes that when that happens, it's just a stricter, place. And even if you I've had, applicants bring deeds, everything. Sometimes they don't even look at it. They just are set to deny. And so in those cases, there's not much recourse. You really can't even, not any recourse that is feasible, because if you appeal it, it's reviewed by the same people that denied it. So it's just extending something that probably won't get you anywhere. It's just to keep trying. Maybe a different location would help, like if there's different cities. But yeah, there's not much you can do. They kind of have all discretion about it. So it's really in their nature. They don't have to explain much. If they feel that they're not believing it, they're not buying it, they can be total jerks about it, honestly, to be honest. Yeah, like I said, don't even open the folder. They're like, well, they'll ask you some rough 3 questions without even opening it. And then I've seen rejections. So in that scenario, I've had applicants go different visa routes or, kind of alter their plans a little bit. And that's just a personal step-by-step thing that each person would have to evaluate. But on a legal standpoint, there's not really much else you can do to push forward a B1.
Okay. And question, I'm a Canadian citizen. Do I need a visa to come here for either this rotation or anything else, like an exam?
Like a Canadian green card or?
No, Canadian citizen.
Oh, Canadian citizens. Well, Canadian citizens are special, as you know. They can come here at any time for the limited amount of time. So technically, no, they wouldn't need anything specific, especially if they're Canadian citizens.
Okay. If I already got an emergency visa appointment, so now I got it.
You got
Will
it.
it be a problem? Now I show them, okay, I'm going there for an observership.
Right. So again, I've seen this happen before because, and not specifically for rotations, but it's the same concept. During COVID, they were more open with receiving and giving emergency appointments. Now, once you go there and they're like, no, this is not qualified, then what happens is actually they 221G it and they put it in this other category. So it kind of delays you sometimes because they forget about it sometimes. And then till you're out of that category, you can't go back into the regular category of the B1 visa. I've seen that happen because it's just not that organized in the government system of the computers and all that stuff. So what I can say is you've already got the appointment. So what you're going to do is go and put your best foot forward that, hey, I have, I mean, we're going to have to dig deep. So you would have to say, I have, financial emergency I am the supporter of my family. They're relying on me to go forward in my medical career. This is the only way. I must get this so I can get this job to support them. I also need to become a healthcare official because there's a shortage. And without that, citizens will suffer. There's not enough help. We would have to definitely put all that in there. Now, whether they approve that or not, there's really not that much data on it right now. The more people do it, the more forums will put stuff on there with people's experiences. But as of now, that's what you would have to do. Just put your best foot forward, have all your documentation ready. Tell them how temporary the stay is and how quickly you'll be back. It's a shot. So, yeah.
Okay, last couple of questions. I know we've already been here 35 minutes and I'm very conscious of your time. About the finances. So how much finances should I show? Let's say it's a 4-week rotation versus the 8-week rotation. Any thumb rule for finances?
There's really no set figure, but what they're trying to see is, so here we have a poverty line in America, and that is, you make, if you make less than 25K a year per se, I don't know the exact figure, or at least above that, you're good. They're not going to go and dissect, oh, does this guy make a good living, or does this woman bring in, steady income? I would say what I've seen in a lot of these bank account statements that they're looking for, if it has around 8,000 or more, nobody really questions that. They think, okay, they can come here. They're not going to be trouble. They're not going to go on temporary welfare. Not that you could, because you're just visiting, but that's the rule of thumb. I've seen about 8 or 10 being fine in the bank account.
Okay. So there are a lot of repeat questions. So guys, we'll put this on YouTube, and unfortunately we couldn't stream it on Facebook, but this will go on Facebook as well. So Sandra, any final tips that you may have? And we'll collect all these other questions as well and maybe send it to you. Or guys, you can put us on our web page. You can send us an email. But as we wrap up, last minute tips, Sandra, for visas.
Just know, guys, you're coming here for a very, very specific purpose. And I think in general, it's not a complicated process. So don't make it complicated. Bring and streamline the documentation you need to bring. Come well prepared, come confident, and just answer everything they say. And after that, it's just really up to the officer, and you've gone there with your best foot forward, and that's all you can do. And for the most part, it's very successful. So B1 is not one of those, high scrutiny, I guess, visas, just because they're so short in nature and specific, even more so than a leisure vacation one. So just know the law and the structure is on your side. So just be confident. And, if you run into any issues, just get through the interview, and afterwards we can assess what we can do. So don't panic while you're there. That's what they don't want to see. And then once you do, everything can be addressed afterwards. So you can give me a call, or you can reach out to your representative, and then we can go from there. So yeah, B1, simple process. Just have the documentation, kind of listen to your leaders at USMLE, and also any legal things I may send you personally. And that's about it.
Thank you very much, Sandra. So anyone, if you want to go through the process, I'll be around, and we'll have the links for you to help you through your visa interview, B1, B2, and of course with rotations. So thanks for your time, Sandra. There are other questions, but in other categories. So probably we'll take up in a different webinar on J1, H1, green card, waivers, etc. But that's for a different webinar. But I wanted to thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
No problem. My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.